Ruby had always been the kind of child who put her entire heart into anything she made. If she drew you a picture, it was because some little spark in her mind said, "This person needs color today." If she folded you a paper crane, it was because she believed every fold carried a wish. And if she built something with her tiny hands carefully, earnestly, it was because she believed gifts meant more when they came from love, not stores. So when she learned we'd be seeing my younger brother Liam at the annual family gathering, she decided she wanted to make him something special. "Uncle Liam is adventurous, right?" she asked me while sketching ideas in her little notebook, legs swinging beneath the kitchen table. "You said he used to go camping a lot." "He did," I said, remembering the rare soft memories of childhood nights under the stars, listening to crickets, roasting marshmallows until they turned black. That had been years before Liam grew into the version of himself who believed kindness was optional and humility was for other people. Ruby tapped her pencil. "Then I want to make him something with fire, but like warm fire, happy fire." It ended up being a tiny wooden ornament shaped like a campfire. She spent 3 whole afternoons working on it, carving the little logs with careful hands, painting the flames with streaks of red and orange, and finally dabbing specks of gold, so they looked like dancing sparks. She concentrated so earnestly that her tongue peeked out between her lips, and each time she stepped back, her eyes lit up with pride. When she finished, she varnished it 2 layers, because it should shine, Mama, and tied a small red ribbon at the top. She wrapped it in brown paper and wrote a tag in her neatest handwriting, "For Uncle Liam, because you like fire and adventure." She held it like treasure the whole way to my mother's house. The sky was turning peach as we drove, and Ruby kept glancing at the gift in her lap, checking the corners of the wrapping, smoothing the ribbon. "Do you think he'll like it?" she asked. I looked at her face, hopeful, gentle, open. "He'll love it," I said. And I meant it, or maybe I just desperately wanted it to be true. Inside my mother's house, the chatter of relatives wrapped around us. The fireplace glowed in the center of the room, warm and golden. Liam stood nearby, drink in hand, exuding that casual arrogance he wore like a jacket, comfortable, familiar, unbothered by anyone else's storm. Ruby approached him with small, careful steps. "Uncle Liam," she said, lifting the gift with both hands. "I made this for you." He took it with a lazy sort of interest, tearing the paper like it was nothing more than packaging from a fast food toy. The ornament dropped into his palm. He stared at it for 2 seconds, maybe 3, then he laughed sharp, dismissive. "Seriously, this looks cheap." The word cracked through the room. Before Ruby could even answer, before anyone could breathe, he tossed the ornament straight into the fire behind him. The flames swallowed it instantly, sparks rising like tiny screams, and beside me, Ruby's little world quietly broke. Ruby didn't cry right away. That was the part that shattered me the most. She stood there small, trembling, frozen, like her mind couldn't process what her eyes had just seen. The flames crackled merrily in the hearth, mocking the silence that fell over the room. The golden sparks she had painted so lovingly were replaced by real ones devouring the ornament she had made with her whole heart. Then she let out the smallest, softest sound, something between a gasp and a wounded whisper, and pressed herself into my side, fingers gripping my coat with the desperation of someone trying not to fall apart. "Ruby," I whispered, stroking her hair, but she only buried her face deeper. Around us, my family exchanged stunned looks. A few murmured Liam's name in disbelief. My mother clutched at her necklace like she needed something to anchor her. But no one said anything to him. No one stepped in. No one confronted him. Just like always, Liam shrugged, rolling his eyes as he raised his drink. "Oh, relax. Kids are too sensitive these days. She'll get over it." Something dark and heavy twisted inside me. I had known Liam all my life, known his selfish streak, his sharp tongue, his habit of trampling over people's feelings without a backward glance. But this cruelty toward my child, was a new depth even for him. Old memories began resurfacing, jagged and sour. The time he borrowed my college savings and never paid it back. The time he mocked my postpartum weight in front of friends. The time he told Ruby last year, with a laugh, that her drawing of a cat looked like a potato. The countless lies, the entitlement, the excuses. And always, the family urging me to let it go, to not make a scene, to remember he's still your brother. I realized then that I had spent my entire life shrinking to make room for Liam's behavior. But this watching Ruby crumble because of him was the moment the shrinking finally stopped. Ruby whispered through her tears, "Why did he do that, Mama? I worked so hard." I crouched down to her level, taking her face gently in my hands. "Baby, what you made was beautiful. What he did says nothing about your gift, okay? It only says something about him." Her lip quivered and she nodded, though she didn't understand. "Not fully, how could she? She was only 8. Liam snorted, "You're being dramatic. It was just some craft project." I cut him off with a glare so cold it silenced him mid-sentence. "Don't speak to her," I said. My voice didn't tremble, it didn't rise, it simply hardened. Something in the room shifted. Maybe the others felt it too, the realization that the older sibling, who had always swallowed things down, had finally reached the end of her rope. I gathered Ruby into my arms. "We're leaving." My mother hesitated. "Sweetheart, maybe we can talk this out." "No," I said. "Not this time." As I carried Ruby through the hallway, she clung to me like her world depended on my heartbeat. And maybe it did. At the door, I paused one last time. Not to look back at Liam, but to breathe in the knowledge that something fundamental had changed. A line had been drawn, and I knew with crystal clarity that Liam would never cross it again without consequences. This wasn't just a moment of hurt, it was the breaking point. The final spark before everything inside me ignited into something he would never see coming. In the days that followed, the house felt strangely hollow. Ruby spent hours at the table, carving small figurines in silence, as if her hands could speak the words her mouth couldn't. I watched her work and felt the same simmering fire inside me that had ignited the night Liam destroyed her gift. But this time it wasn't blind anger, it was focus, precision, a careful, quiet plan that would let justice, not rage, take the stage. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want screaming or accusations or humiliating confrontations that would make Ruby's heart quake again. No, this revenge had to be clean, deliberate, and undeniable. I started collecting evidence, a meticulous record of years of small betrayals that had been brushed aside. Unpaid loans Liam had promised to repay but never did. Text messages where he admitted using family members for money. Emails where he guilt-tripped people for favors, witnesses who had endured his manipulation in silence. Every slight, every lie, every instance of entitlement that had been ignored, excused, or laughed off, everything was documented, organized, and ready. Each evening, after tucking Ruby into bed, I sorted through the files, highlighting patterns and preparing the narrative. I didn't embellish. I didn't need to. The truth was far more damning than anything I could fabricate. Meanwhile, Ruby began sharing her new creations with me. Tiny ornaments, painted stones, delicate wooden carvings. "These are for us," she said quietly one night, holding up a miniature fox she had carved. "So we remember that bad things can't take away what's good." My chest tightened. Her resilience was teaching me as much as I was teaching her. When I finally called the family meeting, Liam was conveniently absent. I told them I had something important to share. Slowly, carefully, I laid out the years of his behavior, unpaid debts, broken promises, emotional manipulation, and of course the incident with Ruby. I didn't pause for reaction, I simply let the facts speak. I watched as expressions changed: shock, disbelief, recognition. My parents' eyes widened. Cousins muttered, realizing how often they had been complicit in overlooking his actions. Liam's charm, the shield he had hidden behind for years, began to crack without him present to prop it up. Then came the follow-up: boundaries. I froze all financial support, canceled any favors I could legally refuse, and informed the family they could no longer ignore his destructive patterns. The beauty of it wasn't in confrontation, it was in inevitability. Liam would feel the consequences without me ever raising my voice. Most importantly, I focused on Ruby. I showed her that kindness, creativity, and love had power, that cruelty didn't define her gifts, and injustice could be met with calm, careful strategy. We rebuilt the trust that Liam had shattered, one wooden carving, one painted stone, one quiet conversation at a time. By the time Liam tried to reach out, the family's response was unanimous. No more excuses, no more access, no more taking advantage. His world had subtly shifted, and the consequences were unavoidable. He had lost the comfort and impunity he had relied on for so long. The sweetest part of all, we hadn't stooped to cruelty ourselves. There were no flames, no screams, just a deliberate restoration of balance. And for Ruby, the lesson was clear. Even when someone tries to burn what you love, you can rise from the ashes stronger, smarter, and more luminous than ever. The days following the family meeting were quiet but charged with change. Liam no longer had the safety net he had relied on for years. He called, he texted, he tried to explain, but every attempt met firm, unyielding boundaries, the excuses he had once leaned on. His charm, his "he's just like that" defense now held no power. For the first time, he had to face the consequences of his actions without the usual safety net of family tolerance. Meanwhile, Ruby began to recover in ways that surprised me. At first, she had been hesitant to make anything new, her confidence fractured by the incident. But slowly, she returned to her desk, her small hands finding their rhythm again. She carved, painted, and built, but this time, there was a subtle fierceness to her creativity, a quiet defiance against the cruelty she had endured. She learned, almost instinctively, that her work was valuable because it came from her heart, not because someone approved of it. One afternoon, she held up a new ornament, her eyes bright. It was a heart, carved from wood, painted in deep reds and soft golds, with tiny wings stretching from its sides. "This one's for us," she said, smiling. "So we remember that good things can fly, even after they fall." I hugged her tightly, feeling her tiny arms wrap around me with a mix of triumph and tenderness. That heart with wings became a symbol of everything we had endured and overcome. We hung it above our fireplace, a beacon of resilience that could never be burned. Liam tried to return to the family fold, testing boundaries he had always ignored before. But the response was unanimous. There would be no more borrowing, no more lies, no more entitlement. For the first time, he confronted not only the disappointment of others, but also the clear, undeniable truth of his own behavior. The family no longer tolerated his manipulations. He had to face accountability alone. The most profound revenge wasn't humiliation. It was justice paired with healing. Liam's absence, his inability to take advantage of the family, and the clear line of consequence sent a message that cruelty had limits, and that those who trample over others would not escape responsibility. Ruby thrived in this new atmosphere. She painted, carved, and created with renewed vigor, teaching herself and everyone around her that love and patience could rebuild even the most fragile hearts. Her resilience inspired me, reminding me that the best revenge is often quiet, principled, and rooted in growth rather than destruction. And so life settled into a new rhythm. The house no longer trembled under the weight of unspoken injustices. The fire in our fireplace now symbolized warmth and safety, not destruction. The scars from the past remained, but they became markers of endurance and wisdom rather than reminders of pain. In the end, Ruby's gift, both the first one that had been destroyed and the new one with wings, taught all of us a vital lesson. Cruelty may burn the surface, but the heart, when nurtured, can rise stronger and brighter than ever. And while forgiveness may one day be possible, trust would be earned, never given blindly again. We had faced betrayal and turned it into strength. And in that strength, we found the sweetest revenge of all: peace, resilience, and the unshakable love between a mother and her daughter.